none of us think we could make it as a disabled parent. So when we see a parent with a disability, we doubt their capacity to raise their family. And we doubt them because we know that parenting is hard. To find answers, most parents will turn to expert advice, and help is found in thousands of books and web pages, making parenting a $500 million industry. But each book and expert seem to be saying something different. So despite wanting to do the best for our children, we sometimes don't know where to turn. But the most useful and creative parenting solutions rarely come from experts. They come from parents with disabilities. And believe it or not, this was my argument before I was in a wheelchair. Let me take you back. I am 25 years old, and I just successfully defended my PhD dissertation in an unpopular and obscure field: mothers with intellectual disabilities. I am convinced that parents with disabilities can be good parents, as I see them raise their children despite society stacking the odds against them. In fact, it is while watching those amazing moms that I found the courage to become a single mom by choice. And so by the age of 33, I became a mom to Thomas. My accident literally came out of nowhere. I had just spent a beautiful week with my whole family at my parents' cottage for New Year's. Thomas, now 16 months old, stayed with my parents as I drove back to work. Suddenly, my car slides on black ice, and a truck is coming my way. My first thought, shit, this is it, my final moment. I am a bit pissed it is coming this soon, but I've had a good life, and I'm proud of what I have achieved. But I'm thinking of my son, for whom I am the only parent, and so I asked to survive. Now, when I asked to survive, I meant I want to go back to the life I currently have. But when I woke up in the hospital, they told me I had sustained a spinal cord injury, which meant in my case that I would no longer feel or move anything below my armpits. And I cried. I had survived to be mom to my toddler, and now I couldn't imagine how I was going to parent him. I knew rationally that parents with disabilities can be good parents. It's what I studied for a living. But faced with my own acquired disability, I started to doubt myself. How can I be a good mom if I can't show him how to kick a soccer ball or skate and play hockey? How can I be a good mom if I can't do it all anymore? If I can't drive him to school or put him to bed at night on my own? I realized I was at odds with my own research, with my own belief system. And I was fearful that I would face all the injustice that parents with disabilities face. On that hospital bed, I judged myself the same way I had seen so many judge the mothers I worked with. In a weird twist of fate, I had become the subject of my own life's work. It took several weeks before I would be left alone with Thomas. I was stuck in my bed at the hospital, and he was placed beside me in his high chair. I had laid blocks on the tray before him. We were about to build the tallest tower we could. When I see Thomas pick one block, and throw it on the floor. He then turns back towards me, looks me straight in my eyes, and waits to see how I will respond. Now, of course, in the past, I would have just bent down, picked it up, without even thinking about it. But now, I couldn't. So I looked down at the floor, then back at him, and shrugged my shoulders. There were clearly new rules to this game. And even though I still didn't know how I was going to make it as a disabled parent, I knew that from this point forward, there would be rules we would need to reinvent or figure out on our own. And so even if it's hard to imagine, how do parents with disabilities raise their children? And what can we all learn from them? So becoming a parent, especially a first-time parent, we rapidly realize that parenting doesn't come as naturally as we'd hope. And so for every new challenge, we end up calling someone, checking with Google, or even looking at influencers on TikTok to solve our problems. But no matter how seductive those solutions might be, they usually fall short as they don't take into consideration the uniqueness of our child, what we already know as parents, the resources we have available, or the context of our own family. What we find are the right answers, but to the wrong question. What we usually type in our search engine is a problem-focused question, one that tries to identify the cause of the problem. But for everyday parenting, understanding the cause of the problem may not be necessary, and it costs us time and resources we don't always have. And it doesn't tell us how to fix it. For example, in rehabilitation, I told them I wanted to push my baby in a stroller. We spent months trying to figure out a way to attach the stroller onto my wheelchair as to liberate both my arms so that I could roll. But by the time we had solved the problem, my baby had grown into this big and tall and strong toddler. And so with his weight and mine, I couldn't go anywhere. We had spent months trying to solve the problem, me pushing the wheelchair and the stroller, and found a solution that could no longer be applied because we had focused on the problem and not the outcome. Now, it must be said, parents with disabilities are not better parents than non-disabled ones. We struggle too. But there is one thing we do differently that leads to quicker, more efficient outcomes, that answers the parenting question we should all be asking. Disabled parents spend less time focusing on problems and more time finding solutions. In my story of the stroller, if we had taken a solution-focused approach, we would have focused on my strength and my son's strength, and probably would have come up with a different course of action. For example, Thomas could have been walking beside my wheelchair and just hold on to my jacket or my scarf, or wear a baby leash, because the solution I was really looking for was for him and I to be able to go out and about in our community on our own. When we have a solution-focused mindset, we focus and we shift our perspective on the strength and resources that we have. Several studies in psychotherapy have demonstrated that a solution-focused approach leads to more positive emotions and an increased sense of self-efficacy, or our ability to be able to do things for oneself. When we use a solution-focused approach, we identify the goals we want to pursue, and then we craft and tailor the solutions to our values and lifestyles, making us less frustrated, more proactive, and in control of what works for us. I recently wanted to see my son play hockey, but I was welcomed by a flight of stairs or an icy ramp. Obviously, I can't do either. But if I want to watch the game now, I need a solution now. It doesn't matter why the ramp is icy. What matters is the solution. The best solution we could come up with was for a group of dads to come in and carry me in like Cleopatra. Being solution-focused means that we will find an answer, even if the answer is not perfect nor permanent. Because participating in our kids' lives is infinitely more important than solving the problem of universal accessibility. That we can fix another time, after I've watched my son's hockey game. And even when it is time to tackle the larger problem of universal accessibility, it is still not necessary to know why society is not fully accessible. What I want to focus on is what kind of solutions are we going to put in place from now on so that parents with disabilities and their children can be included everywhere. What we focus on grows, and so the more solutions we find, the easier and more obvious future solutions will be. Here are some of my favorite examples of creative solutions from disabled parents. A mom I know who has a vision impairment wanted to take her kids to the park, but she wanted to find a way to be able to track them in the playground. So she put bells on their sneakers. That was her creative solution. Another mom I know who has an intellectual disability knew she couldn't help her son with his math homework. She accepted and moved on and found someone else from her church community who could tutor him. What worked for their family was to not get frustrated on something she knew full well she couldn't do, but rather team up with someone else who could be more helpful. When Thomas was still a toddler, he didn't want to get into the bath one night. And so he hid under the table in that one corner he knew I couldn't reach. So I blew bubbles to lure him out and into the tub. What I have learned from disabled parents and from becoming one myself is this: I don't need to understand why something's broken to fix it. When we stop focusing on problems and start finding solutions, it will save us time and resources. And maybe money too, as we won't need all of those parenting books. So, what can a non-disabled parent learn from all of this? Well, consider a child who's not sleeping through the night. The cause of not sleeping through the night may be very different for different families. For some, and the solutions too, and so for some families, they will be okay with a co-sleeping arrangement. For others, it's going to be a sleep training program. Someone who has more financial means might hire a sleep nanny, when another family who has similar financial means would never approve of it. The point is this: we may not need to spend months trying to figure out why our child is not sleeping through the night. Your family needs rest. Focus on solutions. As parents, we do the best we can with what we have. So next time you see a parent in your community or on TikTok, don't judge them too harshly. But do ask yourself this question: which creative solutions are they using right now? And if ever you've come across a parent with a disability, don't judge or don't pay attention to what they don't have that you do, but rather focus on what they do have that you don't. And maybe they will teach you something new.